If Feast Week wasn't fulfilling enough, the ACC and SEC Challenge is right around the corner this week, offering a lot of different dessert options, including Alabama versus Clemson in Coleman Coliseum. I'm Charles Branch, and this is Crimson Crossover Cross Court, and I'm pleased to be joined by Terrence Oglesby, former Clemson guard and current analyst for the Field of 68 and the ACC Network. Terrence, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, buddy. I'm actually on my way to participate in the ACC SEC Challenge. Heading up, I'm doing Wake Forest in Oklahoma. I look forward to that one. Oklahoma has a young man named Nigel Pack who has been in college since I was a sophomore. It feels like he's been in college that long. And then on the flip side of that, Wake Forest, they come off have a massive win over Memphis. You see some momentum starting to generate, and Steve Forbes really trying to get into the NCAA tournament. Can he finally get over that hump? There's a lot of storylines there too, but Alabama, it's been a good time for Nate Oates and company.
Well, it's been a great time for Alabama, and it's been a great time for Clemson recently, too. But before I get started there, and before NIL era and all that, when you were going through the recruiting process, you actually had to love your coach, love the facilities, love the school. Money wasn't involved. What drew you to go play at Clemson back in the mid 2000s?
I was telling you before we started recruiting, I actually really wanted to be in the SEC. I was recruited by Alabama and Mark Gottfried, and I, he just would never pull the trigger. It was Coach Pearson that was the guy that was heading up my recruitment. For some reason, he just wouldn't pull the trigger and offer me a scholarship. And I'm not saying I would have committed on the spot, but it would have been a long pause because I would have had to think about it because I really liked it down in Tuscaloosa. But what it ended up being, it was Clemson, Michigan, Oklahoma, and Miami, and then Virginia Tech and Seth Greenberg offered me late, but it ended up being Michigan and Clemson. And my grandparents were getting a little older. I grew up in Tennessee, and my grandparents were getting a little older, and they would have been able to come to a couple of games. And Clemson was about 3 hours drive from where I was going to high school in Tennessee over the mountains. So for me, to stay reasonably close to home, to play a style of play that would get up and pressure you. It would cover up some of my defensive flaws because, I'm 6'2", I got shorter arms. And there were just ways for me, to make an impression and an impact the first day I got on campus. And it was a program on the upswing. So for me, to go to a place like Clemson was really exciting. And it was a team that was just on the cusp of winning and just on the cusp of getting into the NCAA tournament. And then I got there, and obviously the both years that I played there, we made the NCAA tournament. So mission accomplished there. But as far as, staying there, I was only there for 2 years. So it was what it was.
Part of making those NCAA tournaments, I know the ACC and the Big Ten used to challenge each other around this time of year. And so I'm just curious from a player's perspective, when you have these types of games and these types of challenges and what they're built up to be, is it more of just being focused on playing another quality opponent, or do you get into trying to represent the conference and win the challenge for the conference?
It's interesting that you asked that. I always thought whenever I was playing that the ACC was just better. And to be honest with you, look back on those 2008, 2007, 2008 years and 2008, 2009 years, we were better. And I think the Big East was making a run. They had a good league at the time, but it was the ACC. And whenever we would play Purdue coming home, I just assumed that we had the upper hand. Then we played Illinois the following year, and we went up to Champaign and whipped their butt too. So it was like one of those things where we were confident, but at the same time, I had this complex, and you'll probably laugh at this. I had this complex where it's like we could be playing North Florida, and I'd be nervous that somebody was going to be better than me. So like it was always, I was always uncomfortable as far as that's concerned, but I was always confident. That's why I worked so hard at it. But as far as like, is it just another really good opponent? Yeah, you would think that, but at the same time, like there was a hint of arrogance once upon a time with the ACC, and including me there.
Well, Brad Brownell is now in his 16th season at Clemson. It's hard to believe he's been there that long. He's got 5 NCAA tournament appearances, obviously made it to the Elite Eight against Alabama 2 years ago. But with him being there, so he's had some good times, he's had some bad times. As he continues to lead Clemson, and whenever this tenure does end for him at Clemson, how do you think people are going to remember what Brunell has done while he's been at Clemson? Because I know you were also part of his staffs at one point.
Yeah, I was. He's a good person. I think that's first and foremost. Secondly, he is just second to none level coach, and I think whenever you talk to coaches around the country, the respect that Brad has among his colleagues is second to none. Clemson's not an easy job. Much like what Nate Oates is doing at Alabama, it's a football school, and you go to ask for support, and Alabama's given Nate that support. So they've gotten more support than what Brad has at Clemson. But at the same time, it's like, to be able to do more with less, and that hasn't necessarily been the case the last couple of years, but early on in his tenure, and then he finally started to get it going. He has really been able to put together teams that play well together, they play hard, and to be in 16 years, like he would have been my coach had I not gone pro after my sophomore year. Like he would have been my coach my senior season. So like for him to be able to stay that long in a place where people get impatient, like, I think he's the greatest coach in Clemson men's basketball history.
Yeah, he's done a phenomenal job, and I remember when he was kind of getting on the hot seat a couple years ago. But credit to him and credit to Clemson for being patient and allowing him to build a program that's now competing in the NCAA tournament. And this team is obviously looking to be in the NCAA tournament as well. They've gotten off to a great start. They're 7-1. Schedule hasn't been real tough, but it does include wins against West Virginia and Georgia. What do you know about this Clemson Tiger team so far as they've kicked off this 2025-2026 campaign?
The front court's really good. That's first and foremost. Nick Davidson's a player. R.J. Godfrey's as strong as an ox. He was at Georgia last year. The prior 2 seasons before that, he was in Clemson. So he's just coming back home. That 4-5 combination is really good. Jake Wallin, transfer from Utah, has turned out to be a much better player than some people anticipate. He's about a 6'9", 3-man who can step out and shoot the basketball. And then Carter Welling has turned into, he's not an everyday guy yet. I think that's going to come alongside his maturation as a player. But I think he is going to become that. He's probably the most talented out of the lot. It's just, you got to get him to do it every single night. But Nick Davidson is super solid. The front court is the strength of the team. But at the Charleston Classic, which they ended up winning, the good bracket, this was a team that, they got some guard play with Justin Porter, who transferred over from Middle Tennessee State. They got some guard play from a young player, Marcus Foster's little brother, Zach Foster. Zach, he's just terrific. And so you have all these other pieces to go along with a point guard who understands what is needed to win at a high level. This is Chase Hunter's brother, Dylan Hunter, who's been there forever. So he's seasoned, he understands how to play, and all the guys that I mentioned are plus defenders. That's the big part about the whole thing.
So you mentioned Clemson have a really strong front court, and Alabama, that's been something Alabama has struggled with this year, getting dominated on the glass at times. How do you think that's going to impact the game, and do you think Alabama is going to have an opportunity to stack up against Clemson's front court?
I think that's going to be the name of the game. Like, Alabama's going to have to finish possessions, because if they finish possessions and get a defensive rebound, that means they can push the pace. And when Alabama pushes the pace, there's not many teams in college basketball they can stay in front. If they're not able to finish possessions and Clemson's able to crawl the offensive glass, if Clemson gets 11 or 12 offensive rebounds, it's going to be really hard for Alabama to win. Because if that's the case, the tempo's slow to a crawl. And that favors very much so in Clemson, because Brad is very much going to be able to get his guys shots in the half court. Not saying Nate won't, because Nate's obviously one of the top 5 coaches in the game too. It's like one of these things. How is it going to be able to? How are you going to be able to control tempo? That's the big thing, and I think the glass is going to be a huge portion of that.
This seems to be a very underrated game in the ACC SEC Challenge. What are your thoughts about that?
No question. The biggest issue is this is 2 teams that were in the Elite Eight last year, played each other in the Elite Eight, and we can't get more coverage on this game. is going to be fantastic. And I think there's a little bit of fatigue because Clemson and Alabama have played so many times over the last 5-6 years. There's some fatigue there. But at the same time, like, two high-level programs, Nate Oates, Brad Brownell, two terrific basketball teams going head-to-head at Alabama, which I think Clemson played 2 years ago there and ended up winning. It's just a fantastic matchup. And here's the deal, like, it doesn't get any better for the front courts when it comes to Clemson. It doesn't get any better for the back court when it comes to Alabama. So I think it's a quality matchup that isn't getting enough attention.
So I mentioned Clemson's had a really good start. Schedule gets a lot tougher with playing Alabama, and then they play BYU. They'll have South Carolina as well in the non-conference, and then they get into the ACC. So what are your expectations for Clemson? I know you said you expect them to be an NCAA tournament team, but as the ACC still kind of figures out their footing with coaching changes and new players coming into the league, what are you expecting for Clemson by season's end?
I expect them to be on the right side of the bubble, like right there on it. Just because I think there's going to be more teams from the ACC in the NCAA tournament this year. The net rankings came out for the first time today. The collective average of the ACC, if you take all 18 teams, is up like 24 spots. So like the league as a whole, significantly better. I think Clemson's going to be in that 7, 8, 9 range. I think we're looking at 7, potentially 8 teams in the NCAA tournament. And I think it's a team that could win a game. It's just, it's can you get backcourt production with consistency? That would be my biggest thing.
So I want to get back to your playing days because it also included, while you were at Clemson, 2 wins against Alabama. So maybe Mark Gottfried should have pulled the trigger, especially in that game on New Year's Day of 2008 when your Clemson team came Alabama 87-61 and had me fuming in the stands. Not only did you win 87-61, you were 5 of 9 from the 3-point line. So if there was Terrence Oglesby in this era, 25-26, playing Nate Oates, could you be shooting 50% from 3 for Alabama in what we affectionately call the hangar of doom?
I would. I'd be shooting in the 40s. I would be. I had a little bit more game off the bounce than people knew, so I think that I should throw that part in there too. But Godfrey for some reason never offered me, and I was ready for I was ready for that offer because there was a girl that lived down the road from me in my hometown. She actually played there. Her name was Allison Butler, and she's from the same town as I am. She went to a different high school about 5 miles away, but she's from the same town as I am. She signs there, loves it, tells me about it. And I'm like, well, I'll come down there and check it out. And I never got that offer for whatever reason. They ended up taking a kid named Scenario Hillman, who was good. He was a pretty solid college player, but he wasn't averaging 15 points a game. And sometimes, like, you gotta take the guy who can score it. And I could score it. And I was a little bitter. I also had 7 rebounds, I think, that game, just to throw that in there for a guy that wasn't considered a great athlete. So it's important.
Sports Reference is shorting you 2 rebounds. They're saying 5 rebounds. So we'll submit
file a complaint.
Yeah.
File a complaint.
Yeah. Well, before I let you go, you mentioned Clemson's a football school. Alabama's a football school as well. We like to try to keep it basketball as much as we can, but we can't control everybody. So I'm going to set the number at 3.5. How many times, over under, the ESPN broadcast reference Alabama Clemson football during the basketball game?
3? That's lowballing. That's one of the things too. I had somebody reach out to me, a good friend of mine. His name's Dan Shirley. He works for The Athletic, and he said, "Hey, hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy your family, enjoy your food, enjoy your football." And all I responded was, "Football just gets in the way," because I'm a hoop head only, man. Like I try to watch football just with friends, and it's a good way just to sit and relax and all that stuff. The entertainment value ain't what it is for basketball. Basketball is just bonkers. It's constant motion. It's constant action. I love it. I'm trying to bring the joy with me to show to everybody else too. So 3.5 is low. I'd probably go 5 to 7 at least.
We just finished rivalry week in football. There's a reason why basketball is called Feast Week for Thanksgiving. It all lines up with
Right,
each other. But
right.
really appreciate your time. I know a lot of our listeners will catch you on the Field of 68 and all the different shows you're doing there, like After Dark and Shooters Shoot. Where else can Alabama basketball fans and just basketball fans in general be finding you this year?
ESPN and ACC Network. I'll be on ESPN 1, 2, and ACC. I'll do some SEC. So we'll see. Hopefully, I can get down to Tuscaloosa. It'd be great. But I only have my schedule through Christmas. So I got this one coming up. I got Wake Forest, Oklahoma. And then I have East Carolina versus UNC in Chapel Hill. And then I have East Tennessee State against North Carolina in Chapel Hill. So those are my games until Christmas. And then I also do the Charlotte Hornets games for their pre-half and post-game shows. So staying busy.
Staying busy and seeing some good Alabama basketball players and Brandon Miller and Colin Sexton for the Hornets as well.
That's right. Love those guys. Trying to get Brandon back from injury. Brandon's been really good when he's been healthy. He has struggled to be healthy since his rookie year.
Well, Terrence, I really appreciate your time sharing all this with us. As I tell everybody, I wish you good luck the rest of the season for Clemson, but not Wednesday night when they take on Alabama. I highly recommend everybody turning into After Dark whenever Terrence is on and catching up with him. But again, safe travels and really appreciate your time this evening.
All right. Appreciate you.